Public policy, it is extremely difficult to define causality. Causality is a big problem or a very important area of inquiry to ascertain whether a particular intervention is leading to a particular outcome. For example, how do we know that giving mosquito nets to people reduces malaria, or giving midday meals, free lunch to school children in primary schools increases attendance and educational outcomes? One way to do it is that just do it and find out, but there's always a doubt whether a particular improvement or change happened because of your intervention or certain other environmental factors. Maybe they had a better teacher, the students. Some new teachers came, and it's not because of the midday meal that their attendance and educational attainment went up. So, typically, the way to do it is a randomized control trial. This was a method that was borrowed from the medicine into the public policy field, and uh, it has been around for quite some time. But it was really championed by Abhijit Banerjee and Esther Duflo, who also received a Nobel Prize for that. And now, randomized controlled trials have become widespread. It's become an industry, and the importance of that is that it really is able to pinpoint to you that this is the reason why a particular intervention happened. So, for example, if the way to conduct that from a broad perspective is that you take two groups of people who are kind of the same, or you either randomize, you know, uh, two groups of people, randomly select two groups, or select very similar groups of people, and do the treatment on one group. By the treatment, I mean an intervention such as giving midday meals, and don't do it on another, that is the control group. So there's a treatment group on which you do the intervention. On the control group, you either give a placebo, like in medicine, or you don't do anything. And then, if the effects, such as increasing attendance or increased educational scores, are observed in the treatment group or not observed in the control group, you know that it is because of the particular intervention that you made, and you can therefore establish causality. Now, in the current debates around artificial intelligence, this sort of a thing has become really important. There are scientists talking about causal AI, and right now, most of the artificial intelligence models, the large language models, ChatGPT, and all of the ones that we use, Google or Gemini, Cloud, etc., all of these are based on correlational models. So, what that essentially means is that those models study a large set of data, and then, based on how things have happened on that particular data, they predict an outcome. So, for example, it would a large language model would study or would have been fed billions and billions of books, and based on those books, it would understand what typical words come after which words. So if I've used this word, something else would follow it in a particular context. So they're basically just doing this correlational analysis, which is not great for causation. And why is that a big challenge for public policy? The lack of causal analysis is that nowadays, increasingly, we are seeing, and we will see, more and more of artificial intelligence technologies used for policy decision making. Recently, at the Kumbh Mela for traffic management, AI has been used in other instances in cities and urban planning for optimization of land use or for traffic management, etc. Artificial intelligence model have been used, and they are indeed beneficial, the generative AI models, but they do suffer from a particular flaw, and that is that they are essentially correlational. And the flaw becomes, apparent, or, it becomes noticeable in certain situations. So, for example, if I was training AI on the data set of traffic flows on a particular city, but something new happened in this city, and this in social sciences is called a critical juncture. So, for example, at a country level, uh, moving from autocracy to democracy is a critical juncture, or moving from a closed economy to a liberalized economy is a critical juncture. So, critical juncture is something that changes the equilibrium of that particular place. So, let's say a critical juncture occurred. COVID happened. That was a critical juncture. Or let's say at an even smaller level, let's say we are looking at a small town and we have traffic data for it, but a new industry came to that town. So people now, their travel flows have changed because of that new industry. Now, this machine learning model would not be equipped because it has been running on correlations and optimizing on past data. It would not be equipped to deal with this new, particular model. And in fact, I was talking to somebody today, somebody who's very good at programming these AI models. He's done it, and uh, he we were discussing that nowadays there are attempts of AI models being trained on various writings of a particular philosopher. I know I met the head of the New York Vedantic Society, Swami Sarpriyanand, and he told me that Georgia Tech has trained an AI model on all of the YouTube videos that he has put out there online. So, and encapsulated that into a bot. So you could talk to a bot and it would give you the answers that Swami Sarpriyanand would have given in all of those YouTube lectures. That's all fine and good, but what if, a person changes their mind? So, for example, Mahatma Gandhi once said when a journalist asked him about a particular social issue, Mahatma Gandhi said something. He gave his opinion, and the journalist said that about this same issue you gave a different opinion. I don't know, 10 months ago or something. So Mahatma Gandhi said that yes, I gave a different opinion, but you should always consider whatever I've said most recently to be my current opinion, because after interacting with more people, after meeting more people, after thinking and pondering on the situation, I do tend to change my mind. And my Professor Kaushik Basu, also said that when he was a PhD student under Amartya Sen, he went to Amartya Sen very excitedly that I read your paper, from decades ago, and I tend to agree with what you said in that particular paper. And Amartya Sen said that, well, I used to think like that, but I've really changed my mind on it. So if you agree with it, it's not really the same thing anymore that I believe in. So essentially, if through those interactions the learning happens, and there is a change in situation, whether it is a change in mental model or a change in a city, some new company comes in, or COVID hits or something changes, your generative AI models are not going to be able to deal with that change because they are based on past correlational data. They don't have a mind of their own. So, causal AI is a very important and a very promising field that has come up, which really gives hope in using AI, not just more ethically, which is extremely important, but more effectively. And Causal AI was popularized by this scientist called Julia Pearl. He's an Israeli American computer scientist, also won the and mathematician, actually, also won the Turing Award in mathematics, which is almost as prestigious as the Nobel Prize in math. So he has really popularized causal AI, and I think that there is immense promise in using AI based on causal assertions. So if an AI is really, really understanding that this particular phenomena causes that phenomena, so if an AI really, really knows that in one particular scenario, let's say in India, where food or where income scarcity exists, food scarcity does not really exist in India. It's a food surplus country. There are distributional problems. But if income scarcity exists, and if a person has, let's say, six children, and if one of their meals for each of the six children is taken care of by the government in the school, then they are more likely to send kids to the school because it's just easier on the budget, and the attendance, etc., is going to go up. So we have that causal assertion over there. So if that is you know ingrained into the AI model, if those causal assertions are ingrained into the AI model, from a policy analysis perspective or from a policy implementation perspective, AI is probably going to give you better data, so or better recommendations, if it is looking at whether it is looking at traffic models. So if AI really knows why in certain situations traffic works smoothly and why in certain other situations traffic does not work smoothly, if it has been fed that experimental knowledge, then AI is likely to be a lot more grounded and a lot more accurate and effective, and could bring a wealth of benefits to public policy professionals, rather than just this correlational AI that we are habitual of. Uh, However, that is just one part of the story. Another part of the story is that causal AI would have its own set of challenges. And I don't think that a lot of people have talked about the challenges that causal AI would prove, would face. And again, I was reading this paper by Dr. Basu. It's a 1981 paper on causality. It's called Causality and Economic Theory. And he talks about, and he's drawing on a lot of other philosophers such as Hicks, etc., where he talks about, you know, eventually causality is also built on these micro chains of correlations, which is going to be, a problem if uh, we do implement causal AI. I think causal AI is the next frontier, but again, I think the problems in causal AI would be that, for example, you know, if I were to explain the assertion that causality also is just based on various chains of correlations, it would be that you know why does inflation happen? We know, now causal theory knows that increasing money supply leads to inflation, because if there's more money suddenly in the pockets of people and there are the same number of goods, then more money is chasing the same amount of goods, so the price of the goods would go up, and therefore there'll be inflation in the economy. We know that, and we take it as a causal truth. But if you really dig down into it and you understand that, does it always happen that increasing, or why does it really happen that increasing money supply leads to prices going up? If you understand the micro or the sub parts of the mechanism, you would realize that all of that happens because of certain correlations. So uh, you know a much more simpler example would be that if I hit you on your hand, or typically if I'm talking to you and if I hit you, you would get upset with me. But why would you get upset? Because when I hit you, I have ruptured some of your cells. Those cells have caused you certain pain, and your interpretation of that pain is that I was trying to offend you, and that's why you're not happy, and plus you're suffering from the pain. But there are some parts to it that, okay, why does it happen that if I hit you, your cells rupture? Because there is an axiom. It is a law of force that is you know force is a scientific axiom that when you apply force against a weaker matter, that matter is going to dissipate. Now when your cells dissipate, they do send some signal to your brain that something is wrong. But then you'll have to get into, okay, why do the cells send certain signals to the brain when they dissipate? And you would understand that there would be another axiom uh, underlying that. And axioms are, in a way, fundamental pieces of truth, so to say. For example, gravity is an axiom. If I throw something, it is going to fall down, at least on Earth. So those fundamental axioms are needed even when you're making a causal assertion. And if you look at any causal assertion from that perspective, you would realize that it is again based on certain correlations. It is based on well tested correlations. So, for example, why does gravity happen? We don't, Einstein has explained it, but even if you go into another why, maybe Einstein says that it's waves or it's, particles. I don't know, not a physicist. But if you go into the why of it, there'll again be an explanation. If you go into the why of it, there's again going to be a sub explanation to it. And you would realize that there are axioms underlying axioms underlying axioms. And all we can do in life, the human endeavor, is to just improve the axioms that we have. And when we are talking about causal AI, the quality of any causal AI would depend on how solid are the axioms. Now, of course, there's this huge debate. Some folks, including Nobel laureates, they feel that axioms are the ultimate truth. So, for example, the Pythagoras theorem, that's an axiom. You have proven it to be true. They say that axioms are the ultimate truth, but others, they say that axioms are really, just correlations, and you can further improve it and just keep getting into more fundamental truths. However it may be, I tend to lean on the latter side, that axioms, you can keep testing your assumptions about axioms and keep asking why and get to more fundamental truths. But imagine an AI that has been trained on axiom banks. So you create a bank of axioms and you upload that bank of axioms, and those could be axioms about the physical world, or axioms about mathematics, or axioms about language. And you create an AI based off of that. That is probably going to be a much more effective AI for decision making, not just in public policy, but otherwise as well. So, for example, if you, in language, a minor example would be that an AI does not use the word before another word that's starting with a vowel. So it would not say uh, a apple, it would say an apple, because in millions or billions of data sets, it's always seen that before a, e, I, o, u starting words, there's always the word an and not a. But it does not know that this is sort of an axiom in English, or this is I won't even say an axiom, but this is a fundamental rule of English. Now, we don't learn language. In fact, there's nothing majorly wrong with that correlational model. We learn language based very much similar to the generative AI. Typically, when we are learning language, unless you're a PhD in linguistics or in a particular language, the way that I picked up English at least was that I knew that you don't use before another word that's starting with a vowel, because it just sounded off. With my interactions with many people, I saw a pattern that most of the time they use an before a word that sounds with a vowel, that starts with a vowel, and I picked it up. So much like the current, generative AI, much like the current chat GPT, etc. But uh, there are places where there are different customs. There are communities where some of those language laws are violated. Uh, but the AI really, imagine if there was an AI that really had uh, all of those grammatical and language rules fed into it, and then it wrote. It is entirely possible that it would come up with a much more clearer, linguistic output. Or it is probably the case. It could also probably be the case that it would be, such a strict way of putting out language that nobody actually speaks in that manner. That's also possible. That every group deviates from the norm, or not norm, deviates from the standard a little bit. Uh, that's also entirely possible. However, if you just feed AI with clearer fundamental rules and generally clearer axioms, you are likely to get a much better output in AI. So while we are moving towards causal AI, I would advocate that there is a particular argument to be had on having axiomatic AI, and then human beings would be needed, or I think philosophers or historians would be needed to test those axioms, uh, and you know uh, figure out or load those axioms into the AI, create axiom banks into the AI, uh, in the hope that it'll give you better output. Uh, Now there is just one more complication over there, that when we talk about causality in social sciences at least, because we are interested in public policy issues, causality is extremely, extremely contextual. So, for example, if I were given extensive data on suicide, and I saw that it is because of urbanization that suicide is happening. There are many studies like that. Emily Durkheim famously said that suicide happens because of anomie, a sense of isolation, and that's a characteristic of the modern world, where work and life are isolated, and there are certain characteristics about the urban life. So if you had a lot of data from the modern world, you'd always think that suicide happens because of that particular model. Variables would be separation of work and life, work being divided into small components. So you're only a small cog in the larger wheel, and you feel isolated because of urbanization. You're not necessarily spending most of your time with your kith and kin, and you lose a meaning in life, and that's why suicide happens. That would be the output of your data. So if you were to predict suicide, you would look at all of those variables. But there could be other instances, and that is really the argument that Max Weber had, that there are no permanent causes. It is the context that creates causes, and which is very important for social sciences. That if you were, let's say, taking data from medieval northwestern India, where if your fort was surrounded by an enemy, you all of the women would burn in a collective funeral pyre if there was no way to escape an enemy's attack, and all of the men would fight until death, which is also another form of suicide, that was called Johar for the women and Saka for the men. If you had data from that, your causal model would be very different. Your causal model would be that suicide is usually caused because of a disproportionate military strength between your side and an enemy side, or between two sides, if there is a very unequal distribution of capabilities, especially military capabilities, and some other factors, a sense of honor, etc. If that is high, then the suicide rates would go high. uh, Two different contexts, and in two different contexts, the whole of your causal model would change. So even when we move towards causal AI, I think it's definitely better than the correlational AI. But within the causal AI, there'll be another of this problem that would arise, that different contexts would really create different models. And there again, having an axiomatic approach becomes extremely, extremely important, because it is possible that there is something common that happens when you're surrounded by enemy and you have a high sense of honor, or when you feel isolated in an urban environment. There's something, through these different pathways, there's something in your mind happens, which is common, and it may not be common as well, but it is possible that it's common, that triggers this sort of a behavior which ends in suicide. So there is a particular axiom over there, or there are axioms, a set of axioms over there that lead you to that. And we need to understand those axioms much better through research, and I think that's what human beings would be needed for, is how uh, nicely can we test axioms. And at some point, maybe there'll be programs that would help us test those axioms much more strictly. And those would lead us to build AI models that are just a lot more robust and that have a lot sharper advisory capacity to inform public policy.